They're rapping to them, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
I can see us telling them, well, take my house. I'll go down to Sears and give me a tent. I have a Sears card. Don't worry about it.
Virginia, you started with your grandma. Was your mother learned to spin when she was 14 years old?
Yes.
Can you tell us all about that and start from there?
I can tell things I remember hearing. My parents talked about you. My parents told me. My mother learned to spin when she was 14. And the thing I thought so then, and I still do, the children only worked 8 hours, but the older people worked 10. My grandmama worked 10 hours a day. And Mama and her sisters, as soon as they became 14, they went to the mill and they learned to spin or learned to fill looms, fill batteries or whatever in weave department. But what I remember most back in those days, you didn't have lunchrooms and things. You took, the younger children would go at mealtime and take their peoples in a bucket or a lunch bucket if you happened to have one. Most time it was a lard bucket. And women that had small babies, they'd take the baby to the mill. The woman would come out, breastfeed her baby, and then they'd take the baby back home. And it still, I think one thing that really helped my family, my relatives survive, a lot of the older people were farmers. And it helped supplement the food supply of the people that did live in the mill towns and didn't have access to gardens or whatnot to help. And this really kept them alive. It helped the whole thing float. But I can think back then, those women back then, they worked in the mill and then they went home, and what daylight was left, they would work in the fields. And the younger kids, my mother only got 3rd grade. My daddy only got about 3rd part of a 4th grade education. And they only went to school in the wintertime when you couldn't work in the fields. And as soon as they got older, they left the fields and they went to the mill. So it's still, the mills controlled the lives of the people. But it was really, to hear people talk about how we did then and how things down there is such a contrast, but it took so much courage to do that. Can you imagine one of us today having a baby brought to us at the mill to be fed? I mean, it's just so much of a thing. And really, like I said before, though, just about all my family, all my relatives, practically all of them are cotton mill workers. Most all of them have worked in the mill. That has been the basic livelihood of all my relatives and people that I know. Their basic livelihood has been the cotton mill. And then to come up and to go against, strike against something that has been the lifeblood of your family, it takes a lot.
Virginia, what about that bridge in 34?
Oh yeah, I've always liked that. Well, the original bridge isn't there now. We've got our 3rd bridge since then. But I remember my daddy and my uncles talking about when they were trying to organize a union there at Irwin. See, they had to do it in secret. They first started meeting in people's houses, but the company found out which houses, and they'd be watching, you know, getting names of who went in the house. So they wound up, they'd go down to the river, and they met under the old bridge at the river. They did, really. That's where most of the regulations, well, the original charter, that thing was written up, it was all decided under the bridge because they had to meet in secret after dark. It had to be done after dark. And they'd all go down to the river and meet under the bridge. That's where the Irwin people had to do, they had to meet in secret to do things. because they couldn't come out in public with it. So our charter was formed under a bridge at the river in the nighttime.
Okay, Jamie, we just have to have Nadia's on. The people know I think we're through.
Okay.
So if you could just keep talking, and he's just gonna be going down and getting shots of people listening.
If you could ask questions, we do what you want.
About Nadia's, what happened?
You ever see on TV when the reporter's standing there going, that's what we want.
That's what they take it afterward, you see. So could you tell us some more about your experience?
Well, I was telling Sheila a while ago, I remember that when my sister and I were growing up, that another phrase that they would call people that worked at the mill were poor white trash.
Lynn Head, same
Lynn
sense.
Head,
Yeah. Well, down there, that's what, they would call. And I remember just eating beans and taters. That's all we had. Pinto beans and potatoes. That was it. That was the meal.
Yeah,
Day after day.
I remember my grandmother even being ashamed, when we were going to town to shop or do whatever, what little we did of it. But she would be ashamed to give people her address. Because we came from down there, and Red River was the name of the place. But it embarrassed her. And I learned from her that I should be embarrassed because I was poor. It was passed on.
This really amazes me. I just didn't realize, I'll be honest, that they consider I'm black, it's always a minority, that I didn't even figure that they consider that the others was like that. And this story is really amazing me. And also, I found at the plant where I worked that the elder people, you could tell they had to go to work early, that they had no education because very few of them they just barely can write their names. Either, we would fill out cards for them. And it's amazing, really, what everybody has to sacrifice. The sacrifice they make to make a living.
Have something else, George? One thing I really remember as a child, and I don't know about you, but at Christmas time, if the union we had a union man, he was our Santa Claus, but if it hadn't been for the union, we would have had nothing. But the union people gave us bags of fruit and candy. You got more than one piece of candy at the time? You think that was something? Man, we got our dolls. I mean, the boys got little trucks or cars or things, and you better believe, if the union hadn't been there, we wouldn't have had a Christmas. And if you don't think we treasured those things, I mean, that was really something. Lord me, you dared anybody to get them dirty. I mean, you keep your hands off my things. But you've never seen such a happy bunch of kids as when the union came in and gave them a Christmas that was really a Christmas. They never forget it. I don't care how old you are. You don't forget the joy and the pleasure and just how wonderful it was, the things you had, because the union was there to provide for you. I mean, it just gives you a feeling that you don't forget. It gives you it helps you to bond, I think, really. It helps you to grow stronger because you can relate and you can bond together on these things. And you know how much it means to you, but how much it means to your family. It gives your family strength. It's there to help you in the hard times. And it's just really, the unions, since they got formed, have really been a lifesaver for a lot of people.
I thought that it was the employer, the Cones and the Callaways and all of those who remembered your Christmas time.
The union did it. This was the union. Because I was just a little girl.
Hams and the maybe I've been really talking
I don't
to the wrong
remember
people.
that.
I will never forget it.
Oh, I can remember Christmas.
I
I think one of the best.
I had a baby doll with real hair on, hair. It wasn't just a slick head. That baby doll had hair on its head. You think that wants something? Oh, my.
I remember one of the best Christmases I ever had, though, was in the house without the electricity. We had a tree that we had cut down, a little pine tree, scrawny little pine tree, and we took popcorn and strung it. And we took different colored paper, and we even took the funny papers from the Sunday paper, We took that and we strung it together and made chains. And that was one of the, we got presents that was left over. It was children that had grown up.
Made you paste out of flour and water.
We sure did. Made paste out of flour and water. And we got toys from people in the neighborhood, had left them on our doorstep from their children when they had grown up. And they had them, but that was some of the best times that we ever had.
And things like that you don't forget.
Okay, but you're gonna forget that you didn't have lunch. I'm sorry I kept you
it
15
won't
minutes
hurt.
too long. But
It
bless
won't
you,
hurt.
you've been wonderful. Thank you very much.
George, I've got enough stored up to take me through lunch.
I know it. We're coming up to see you. Okay, I think we can start now.
Just a minute.
Okay.
How long does it take it to set?
Okay.
What's the name of that?
Mhm.
What's the name?
Decatur Street Blues.
Tell us what it was like in Cabbagetown in '34.
1934. Oh, that was, see now, my mind harkens back, if I can harken back 55, 60 years ago. That was during the strike. And people would gather around on the porches there, you know, and the crowds would to entertain themselves, and we'd get up there and sing and play them some music and keep them kind of happy and all them. It was striking. And we was on one side of the street there in Cabbagetown. They could come and say, you have to get off, you have to move off from here. Can't do that, can't have no picketing, nothing going on this side. This is mill property. So we just moved across Carroll Street there and started again. right across Carroll Street, and we'd sang them some old songs. And I remember Bagwell, the superintendent, he'd come around, look them all over, see, and write down names that he'd see there, you know, trying to scare them up, make them go back to work. But you know, I'll tell you one reason too. All them people, most from Cabbagetown, was mountain people. They come down from the mountain. They'd been used to working, and they didn't know nothing about striking. You know, as long as they was working and making a living, they wanted to just work and make a living. See, didn't want nothing to upset it, and they didn't care. Some of them actually didn't care too much about unionizing. That's the reason it's pretty hard to get to unionize. And they never did unionize Fulton Bag Mill.
Tell us about the National Guard.
Well, they would, I remember
It started to the National Guard.
the National Guard. I remember they'd come out, they seemed to be on the Union side. They seemed to be, you know, they'd come out, and if you was picketing somewhere where you shouldn't be, they would run you back. See, we had bayonets down there in Noonan, Georgia. They had it pretty rough down there with the National Guards running the people back with the guns and the swords on the end of it, and it was pretty rough. They didn't. Nobody seemed to be much on the strike side except the strikers, and the mill owners. They didn't want it at all. And they'd go around and tell them through the mill, if you strike, you lose your job, see. So that'd scare the people up, and they didn't want to lose a job, and so they wouldn't strike.
Did that happen?
Pardon?
Did that happen?
Yeah.
Tell about
Oh yeah, they did. There's some of them that they fired. Some of them went back though and kindly said maybe they're sorry about it and everything. They'd hire them back, see. But the ones that were really in there pushing the strike, backing it up, they didn't, I don't think they hired any of them back.
Could you tell us about what Cabbagetown was like?
In those days, well, there's so much you can tell about in what respect.
You were talking about it being a tough town.
Oh,
And
tough.
As a young man.
Being tough, you mean? Oh yeah, there was some tough characters around there in Cabbagetown. I remember they'd on Saturday night they'd have some fights down there on Carroll Street, boy, shootouts, and it was pretty tough. There's some tough characters around there. But usually the ones that worked in the mill and had the job, you know, and wanted to work, they didn't get into things like that. But it was other people that come in, you know, outsiders from Cabbagetown that usually done the mean stuff, rough stuff. So.
Now, I understand that the mill owners and supervisors kind of looked after the morals of people there and whiskey and so forth. Talk about that.
Yeah, they did. Well, you didn't, excuse me, you didn't get drunk and raise hell, so to speak, around there, because if you did, they'd fire you. They'd tell you right off the bat that they wanted you could do what you want to and you was outside, see, but they wanted you to be sober and ready to go to work when you come in the mill Monday morning. And they did have, and they also had cleanliness. You had to keep your place clean. They had signs on the doors stating how you had to keep your houses clean, everything like that. And but I remember, I remember 1919 when I moved into Cabbagetown. We come from up in the mountains, up in the north part of Gwinnett County. I was young, you know, just a young boy. I'd heard of Atlanta, you know. I thought we was moving to heaven. So we got down there, and the mill, all them streets around there, the mill burnt coal, you know. And they had a lot of cinders that they'd have to get rid of, and they'd dump them up and down the streets there. One reason, too, because it was so muddy, you know, and them cinders would get in there and keep from being so muddy. But I looked them streets over when we moved in the next morning. I looked them over. I said, man, I thought I was moving to heaven, but I believe it's hell. All them burnt cinder blocks. It was nasty, too. And us kids, you run over them cinders barefooted all day, and it don't matter how much you wash that night, they would still get off on the sheets, and Mama didn't like that at all. But it was...
Describe the houses.
Oh, the houses. Well, they was in, the houses was in good shape, had outdoor plumbing though, and they kept the houses up, kept them up. They also had some houses out of Cabbagetown on the streets around there, but you could tell the mill houses from the other private owned houses because the mill did keep their houses in better shape than the private owners did. And we moved in, I remember we moved in there in a 2-room apartment, I guess you'd call it, 75 cents a week. That's what we paid for rent. And during the week, you know, the mill issued out books, something like these food stamps they got now, you know, they'd issue out $2, $5, and $10 books. And there was a little old store down there in Cabbagetown, right at the Carolyn Boulevard, called Rogers Store, and you could go down there and take those stamps and use them for money, you know, till the payday come around. I remember, boy, I used to go down there and get me a 10-cent coconut pie, one of them, every time we'd get one, get a book.
Were you working in the mills?
No, my mother was working then. I was too young. But later on, I become 16. I went to work in there. They gave me a job in the blowing off looms in the weave shop. And people in there, worked in there, they get cotton all over them. And you come dinner time to go out, they didn't have time, you know, to get that cotton off of them. They just come out, you know, with all that cotton over their face and head and everything. People called them lint heads. They didn't like it. But I didn't. Before I'd come out every day, I'd take my blowpipe, blow me off real good. You know, I couldn't stand that stuff on me nohow, all over my face. Like cotton and lint and stuff. The boss come around and said, "Boy, so you're blowing yourself off more than you do these looms here. We're not paying you to blow yourself off." Yeah, I left there though. I couldn't. I said, "This is not for me." I left it and went into the fruit peddling business. And all during the Depression there, I peddled.
Talk about music in Cabbagetown.
Well, there was a lot of people that played music in Cabbagetown. And every night they'd come home. Back then, you know, they worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. But finally they cut it down to 8 hours. But when they did, they'd come home and eat their supper, you know, and some old guy'd jerk his fiddle out and get out on the porch and start playing, you know, and here'd come another. First thing you know, I'd have the porch full of musicians, people to gather in everywhere. They liked the music back then, especially, now I tell you who liked it. We call it hillbilly music back then. But it wasn't liked by the upper class, not at all, hillbilly music was. But cotton mill people and farm people, they liked it. That was their kind of music, see. They liked it, but most other people didn't. But anyhow, they'd gather around there, and sometime we'd play till midnight there, and they'd stay long as it was playing, they'd stay there. Had a lot of fun.
Give us a demonstration of the kind of song you'd sing.
All right, here, let's see, you know, the Lonesome Road maybe? It's like I say, back then it was a bluesy time. You know, most all the songs was blues. It had to sound like blues, so here's one that we'd sang. There was many of them. Look down, that lonesome road before you travel on. Look up and seek your Maker, for Gabriel knows his home. Weary toting such a load, trudging down that lonesome road. Look down that lonesome road before you travel on. Look down that lonesome road before you travel on. Look up and seek your Maker, for Gabriel blows his horn. Weary toting such a load, trudging down that lonesome road. Look down that lonesome road before you travel on.
How'd you like that song?
Grew up with it. They taught it to us the time we could walk.
You live in Cabbagetown?
No, they had just moved from Cabbagetown when I was born. But I've been back down there all these years. We had a church down there, and my son lives down there. My husband worked the mill, so I have affiliated with it quite often.
Well, Peanut, you weren't working in the mills during the strike, were you?
No.
So
But
you
I-
didn't strike.
No.
Could
I
you
wasn't.
talk about the union?
Well, the union, all I can say much about the union is, I wasn't working in there, but we was working with the side of the strikers because we actually was in part of them, see. Where they had a meeting or something, we'd go and furnish the entertainment for them. And so in that we can say, if I'd have been working there, you bet you I'd have been on strike with them. I sure would. But we were just with them, all like one big family. The musicians, all the musicians, was back in the strike.
Why? Why?
Because we felt they was right. They needed. If anybody ever needed a union, Fulton Bag Cotton Mill needed it. I know people that worked, taking TB and died in there from all of that lint, and stuff going into their lungs. And Fulton Bag, them else's, they didn't seem to care nothing about that. They'd work in there, they died, if you got sick or anything, why, it was out. And they didn't give them no big pensions. I don't know if anybody really got a pension at all to mount anything from a Fulton Bag Mill. And the only way you could keep from catching TB, I believe, was chewing tobacco. I couldn't chew that tobacco, so I quit. Yeah, but it was rough for chewing that tobacco. They wouldn't furnish spit to them, and people spit around all of them looms, and I couldn't go that route. That's the reason I got out in there and started pedaling.
Okay, let's cut just a moment. Ron needs a rest, I'm sure. Your arms broke, Ron?
No, it's not back.
I imagine he is holding that thing like that.
Just rest just a minute. Yeah. Okay, so just tell me, just see if you can recall. See if you can recall during the strike, the meetings and so forth. Okay?
Well, like I say, it's pretty hard to harken back. When you get as old as I am, you can't hark much, But 83, by the way. Well, during the strike, we had a lot of fun then. They actually had fun because when we'd meet, we'd have all kinds of entertainment. People would get up and do impressions, Some of the workers would get up there and do impressions of the bosses, Oh boy, and the boss is standing around there, the frown on his face. They didn't like that at all. Yeah, they tell them to come around, you do this, you get that done, you're gonna get out of here, so and so. He'd turn and walk off, the old boss maybe standing around there. And back when he'd write down the names, but they'd get up and do different things, but then they'd get serious and talk about the strike, why was striking if they wasn't making the living that they should make. And to keep them pepped up, So now, I know it was hitting it hard here, but if we win this strike, why, then you can get a better wage than you have now. And they'd hold it out there.
Do you recall any of the strike leaders?
Not really. Like I say, I don't remember. It's been so long ago. I could think, but it'd take me too long to think back and gather them up. But there was quite a few though that led in the strike. It kept them, kept all the people, kind of hyped up. But like I say though, we had fun. every time they'd have a meeting, why, they'd all be there.
Now, you tell us about the Depression and then lead into the song that you wrote about the WPA. Okay,